Okay, it is summary time, 3.2 of Flowing Feast. As always, this is not going to be comprehensive, just the basic plot beats, right? So let's go ahead and get started.
Adele, you must destroy it.
Right off the bat, we are introduced to our protagonist, Adele Tavernier. At this point, she is working a normal, mundane job as a taxi driver, with her current client being one of her regulars and a real piece of work by the name of Felicienne. They have arrived at a supposed fortune teller who just gets finished telling a woman how awful of a life she's going to have unless she buys her special crystals, which naturally she does. Then, looking for her next mark, the fortune teller singles out Adele. And this is where we learn our first pertinent piece of information regarding our protagonist, which is that she hails from a lineage of notorious jewel hunters, the Tavernier, with one of the bloodline's most prominent finds, the French Blue, being a key item later in the story. In addition to this, Adele also reveals her familiar, Fufa, which is a dragon who burns away all forgeries. She has Fufa turn its flames on the fortune teller's crystal, destroying it, which both reveals it as a fake and her as the Tavernier scion. And it's here that we learn the second vital piece of information regarding Adele, which is that the Tavernier bloodline is considered cursed, as all of its members have died in unfortunate, jewel-seeking adjacent accidents. And it is because of this that Adele chooses to pursue her current line of work. She wants to live as normal and quiet a life as possible, far away from any adventure or danger. The fortune teller falls into a manic episode, foretelling doom in Adele's future, remarking that a fate that has been put on hold has now been set on track once again, and then she just drops dead. I was so sure that she was a madness because, look at her, but that is literally the last we ever see of this woman. Regardless, after this everyone falls into a panic, and amidst the chaos, Adele happens to spot a blonde woman smiling serenely at her. After some time, the police arrive, one of which is a contact of Adele's, and they take statements. Some people fear that this is the most recent work of the Beasts of Gévaudan, a rumored monster that runs around in dreams and kills people. Adele mentions the smiling woman she had seen and is informed that this is none other than the renowned diviner, Beryl Boaniche. In the car now, Felicienne learns of this and demands that they go meet Beryl immediately, offering Adele 10 times her usual pay to go right now, but Adele must ultimately refuse as she has made plans with a friend. Regardless, Felicienne refuses to take no for an answer, grabbing the wheel, and after a brief struggle, we are given our state-mandated heavy machinery incident for the patch as Adele collides with another car. Felicienne demands that she goes out and deals with it, and comes across a man who is not just understandably irate, but also seems to be completely off his rocker. Right, he is raving about Napoleon coming back and all sorts of other anachronistic things, and it's here we learn that this is not an altogether unusual occurrence. Apparently, on top of Freddy Krueger killing people in their sleep, a fair number of folk have also fallen into fantastical delusions, with our current case being the latest iteration. After some time, he is subdued and Adele becomes acquainted with his professor, Roseau, who informs her that the man's name is Vincent. Another person comes tiling along, and we find that this is the friend that Adele had been planning to meet, and another one of Roseau's students, Celia. They get things sorted out, Vincent is shipped off to the hospital, and Adele offers Celia a ride back home, only to find that Felicienne has ditched her, leaving a message to meet her tomorrow scrawled on her window in lipstick. A lovely woman, truly. And it is at this point that the scene abruptly shifts. We find Adele in a darkened room, being questioned by Bob of the Vigils Bureau, as it turns out that this entire story is being told as part of an interrogation into the actions of Beryl Boaniche. Adele dives back into her tale, and we find ourselves now at Celia or Cece's place. They eat and talk about how much of a pain in the ass Felicienne is, and Adele brings up the dead fortune teller. This leads to the pair speculating on fate and the psyche and humanity, which ultimately leads to some exposition of the collective unconscious. A Jungian symbol and the central device of the story, Celia explains the collective unconscious as the shared repository for humanity, where certain symbols and ideas are so deeply etched into our memory and that they constantly recur regardless of the era or place. She describes it as a sea, with each person being an island amidst its waters. We all build on our islands, but eventually the sea reclaims it all, adding the contents of that island to the human collective. And this is apparently the crux of her and Roseau's work, finding a way to influence the human collective consciousness in order to change the nature of humanity as a whole into one more benevolent and positive. The night passes, and the next day Adele is waiting outside Beryl's shop for Felicienne, though the appointed meeting time has long since passed. She enters the shop alone, only to find that Beryl had already foreseen her visit because, of course she did, right? They chat for a bit, and the conversation invariably turns to Adele's own lineage, specifically that of the Tavernier curse. Beryl confirms that some form of curse does follow her, though it may not be exactly what she thinks. And in order to elucidate further, Beryl offers a divination, giving Adele a smoky quartz as a focus. The divination begins, and Adele finds herself slowly drifting off until she is rudely awakened by an unpleasantly familiar voice. Felician has found her and is now chastising her for abandoning her and napping all on her own in a place like this. Checking the clock, Adele finds that it's gotten quite late and offers Felician a ride home, but she refuses, not wanting to get into that death trap for the time being, as she calls it. They walk outside to find the street dark and completely desolate, with the only light being that of a nearby cafe, which Adele enters to find an incredibly surreal scene. The patrons are all manner of decidedly inhuman beings, save for one. Celia is there chatting happily with a fish-headed man. She greets her, but Adele, realizing that something is wrong, grabs her and books it, with the patrons of the cafe turning into beasts of Gevaudan behind them. They fend them off for some time, but are about to be overrun when they are saved by a car pulling up, driven by our resident lunatic, Vincent. And for a while, everything seems to finally be safe, but Adele begins to notice small discrepancies in the situation. Specifically, that Vincent should still be in the hospital, and that the lipstick on the car's window looks incredibly familiar. Adele finally realizes that this is all of a dream, summoning Fufu to burn away all of the lies. Vincent burns up, revealing himself to be a beast of Gevaudan, and after dispatching him, the dream begins to fall apart. Celia calls out to her, but even after being doused with Fufu's flames, remains unchanged, proving that she is the real deal. As everything begins to melt away, Celia leaves her some parting words. The Manus Vindictae have opened the archive of imagery. Rizzo is not to be trusted, and to take this. She drops something into Adele's hand, which is a necklace adorned with an ornate and conspicuous jewel, the French blue. And with that, Adele awakens. Disoriented, she looks around the parlor, finding it to still be daytime with Beryl still there. However, upon opening her hand, she finds not the smoky quartz that she had taken into the dream, but the French blue. Odder still, Beryl insists that she had entered the store with the blue herself, and that she had always had it. Naturally, Adele spends quite some time agonizing over the impossibility of the situation before turning her attentions to instead finding Celia for more answers. They go to Adele's place to fetch some of Celia's belongings so that Beryl can divine her whereabouts, ominously claiming that she had been swallowed by the earth and dances with the dead. Adele deduces that she must be talking about the catacombs, and the pair begin to make their way there. However, upon reaching her car, Adele finds Felician impatiently waiting in the passenger seat. Moreover, she herself is wearing the French blue about her neck. They fight for a little bit before Beryl catches up, asking what Adele is doing, and in response, Adele shows her by turning to her passenger seat to find that the car is empty. Felician is gone. According to Beryl, Adele had been talking to herself this entire time, and desperate to prove her wrong, Adele begins picking through her memories and belongings for evidence of the other woman's existence, but as she does so, becomes less and less convinced of the truth herself. For all intents and purposes, Felician seemingly never existed outside of Adele's mind. More than that, the mood of the city itself seems to have fallen into some sort of psychosis, as the prevalence of the delusional seems to have increased, with people absolutely losing their minds on the street. The line between dream and reality has become blurred, and everything is falling into chaos. And right on cue, the pair are attacked by some more beasts, and after fending them off, Broom decides that she must go find Celia, but cannot leave Beryl alone, so to the catacombs they go. Stumbling around the catacombs, they come across Professor Rousseau, who dismisses Adele's misgivings as the onset of delusions, recommending that she go get some rest. Undeterred, however, Adele delves deeper into the tunnels, chasing a shadow that may or may not be Celia, before she is suddenly grabbed and whips around to find that it is Celia herself. Celia has been hiding around the catacombs, and she reveals that Manus Vindictae is behind everything, and that Rousseau is in league with them. Celia had witnessed him taking Vincent away from the hospital, and out of curiosity, followed them. Rousseau had found an entrance into the archive of imagery, what Celia had called the collective unconsciousness, and what we, the player, recognize as the depths of myth, in the depths of the catacombs. Rousseau's goal this entire time had been to send someone down to fetch the key to the depths of myth, the French blue, mentioning that a previous pioneer had almost succeeded in retrieving it before being dissolved into the depths. He sends Vincent down, who also almost manages to manifest a jewel before it vanishes, and he emerges as a monster, a beast of Gevaudan. Witnessing all of this, Celia attempts to leave in order to tell somebody, but is shocked to find that Rousseau had already known she would follow. She fights him, and we are then brought back to the present, where Adele comforts her, telling her that everything is going to be okay, and they just need to get out of here together. But Celia can't leave. The reason she had shown up in Adele's dream, and the reason that she had been able to give her the French blue, is because she hadn't escaped Rousseau. She had been caught and tossed into the depths herself, and now she has become a part of it. However, she is relieved that Adele had been able to receive the jewel, but is horrified to learn that Adele hadn't destroyed it, and that it is now in Felician's hands, before being promptly donated by the woman in question. And then Adele wakes up. Again. This entire time she had been hallucinating, pacing back and forth like a madwoman while Rousseau and Beryl watched. More than that, she was now in possession of the French blue, the jewel adorned securely about her neck. thoroughly. Confused and exhausted, Adele finally accepts the professor's offer to head back to the surface and have her and Beryl join him for a dinner party. We arrive at the dinner party to find that Adele has somewhat regained her wits, though her attitude has taken on a completely different air. She is sharper, her words more cutting. We are introduced to a handful of new people, and then Rizzo comes up to make a big speech wearing the Manus mask. Also, the mean old woman makes a short cameo here before getting mad and storming off. This whole event is a Manus Vindicte get-together to celebrate the professor achieving his long sought-after goal of resurrection. Using the depths of myth, those that had fallen into it had been recorded in its depths and can be brought back with a suitable vessel. He indicates towards Adele, and it is revealed that it isn't actually Adele piloting the flesh suit, but instead Felicienne. She is the previous pioneer he had mentioned. She had dove into the depths in order to secure the blue, but is unable to make it back before being entirely destroyed. However, her existence still lingered before attaching to Adele. Also, Adele gets called ugly by a dude wearing a crab mask, which, great, I guess. The celebration is short-lived, however, as it becomes apparent that Felicienne doesn't have full control of the body. Adele surfaces for a short time, essentially telling everyone to go fuck themselves, before Felicienne resumes control, and Adele finds herself in the driver's seat of her cab, surrounded by white nothingness. Beryl is there too, and she explains that Felicienne is essentially a parasite ghost who wants to live again, and had been slowly sapping away at Adele's fate until she could take over. She describes this place as Adele's personal sanctuary. It is a place only for her, and if she doesn't reclaim herself from Felicienne soon, it will become the only place for her until she eventually fades away. Adele leaves the sanctuary, and we get a glimpse of Paris currently getting inceptioned, as a mirror image of the city appears overhead. The streets have fallen entirely into chaos now, as Felicienne and Rousseau make their way to the Eiffel Tower to complete the ritual to unleash the depths of myth on the world. Adele reaches them but finds that she cannot interact with the physical world before being abruptly pulled back into the cab. Beryl tells her that she can just give up, but Adele refuses, realizing that the connection that allowed Felicienne to bind so tightly to her is also the tie that would allow her access back into the body. Back in Paris, the villain pair are now atop the tower when they are interrupted by a gunshot. With the merging of reality and the dream so close at hand, Celia is able to manifest in the real world, and she appears holding the two at gunpoint. Felicienne mocks her, telling her to go ahead and shoot, and whether she hits the diamond or the body, the ritual will end, but Adele will die. Fortunately, Celia is spared from having to make that choice, however, as Felicienne spontaneously erupts into flames. Adele emerges through their shared link, turning her own arcane skill upon herself to burn away the lies, and upon claiming her body, Felicienne is expelled, becoming an unbound shade, just like Celia. Adele then attempts to burn away the French blue, but is interrupted as Felicienne attacks her. She reveals that the reason that she was able to bind so tightly to Adele in the first place is because they are at their core the same. Although Adele claims to have wanted a normal life, she reveals that she had always wanted to be more, to tread the steps of her allotted fate, but had always denied it. She convinced herself that all she wanted was mundanity, and the dissatisfaction that arose from this dissonance is what gave Felicienne the hold she needed to latch on. Adele wanted a reason to go on an adventure, to follow the Tavernier bloodline, to seek the jewel and fight the bad guy, something that Felicienne and the French Blue conveniently gave her. After airing out Adele's dirty laundry, Felicienne then transforms, becoming a big tower woman for the final fight. Adele eventually beats her and burns away the diamond, only to find that it doesn't disappear. According to Beryl, it is a primordial symbol, something so entrenched in the thoughts of society, so abjectly pure that it cannot be destroyed. However, regardless of the reason, Adele cannot destroy it, and thus she cannot stop the ritual. And then the rain begins to fall. This entire event was a precursor to the fifth storm. Celia vanishes, Rizzo goes mad, eventually ending himself with a bullet to the head. That's number 6 for those of you keeping track at home. And Felicienne begins to beg. In the rain, she casts away her airs and her pride and begs for her life. And Adele miraculously agrees to spare her in the hopes that her existence can be the key to unraveling the mysteries of the depths and pulling Celia from them once more. Beryl seals Felicienne's fleeting essence in the same smoky quartz Adele had chosen at the start of her journey and hands it to her, and with that they head to a storm safe house. And we are snapped back to the present day in the interrogation room. Adele testifies that Beryl was never in league with Manus, something that is blatantly false, yet the lie detector confirms it as the truth. The reason for this discrepancy is revealed as she leaves the interrogation room and Felicienne speaks to her in her mind, the latter having tampered with the detector without the Vigil's knowledge. They walk off bickering, and we move on to Beryl, who is in Madame Z's office, where Burton arrives, and the event ends with her asking Burton if she had seen the golden thread. And that's about it for the story. A very solid event overall. I do think it is worth a read for sure. It was fantastic, though I do think that Celia and the Adele connection was a bit undercooked, along with the reveal of Adele's true inner desires. Otherwise, no real complaints though. Thank you to Bones and Apple, Pump Aerostar, P Damon Seed 123, Amane Echo, Chip the Second, Sam's V2, and Durpuffer for being members, and a special thank you to Chip the Second and Amane Echo for the 5 gifted subs each. And to everyone else, thank you for coming in. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. Alright, bye bye.